Thanks for joining me on this video today. So what we're going to cover is the 3 stages of the entrepreneur and then the entrepreneurship mindset to take you from maybe you're starting in entrepreneurship or you're a little more experienced and how to ascend beyond the 1% of entrepreneurs into true abundance. So I'm looking forward to sharing this with you. Let's get started. So the first thing I want to cover with you are the 3 stages of entrepreneurship before we start diving into the actual mindset elements that are going to help you succeed in entrepreneurship. So this is going to be for you if you're, just jumping into entrepreneurship, or if you're at a point where you've been in entrepreneurship for a while and you're making a transition into becoming a leader and removing yourself from responsibilities and building a team to pursue your greater vision. So let's get started. Stage 1. This is going to be you're new into entrepreneurship and man, everything's awesome. You're your own boss. You make your own hours. You wake up when you want to. I mean, it's amazing, right? You're experiencing this freedom. This freedom maybe you didn't have before. And it's so fun. You land a few clients. You make a little bit of money. Maybe you're like $10,000, $20,000 a month. Feeling damn good, right? That's whenever you realize your next stage is coming. You can feel it. You know it's there. All right. This next stage is where you start to drown in fulfillment. You're drowning in responsibilities and you start to realize that you actually ended up starting a business where you're working for yourself. That's when the realization hits. Okay. This is phase 1, transitioning into phase 2, which is having to build a team. All right. So when you start having that realization, you have to make a decision. You have to decide, am I going to move into that next stage? Or am I going to stick in this first stage of basically this false belief of freedom that you thought you were going to have doing it? So this is a decision you have to make. You either continue to work for yourself, typically going to be around $20,000 a month or less in revenue. Now, granted, you get to pay yourself all that minus your expenses, which sounds amazing maybe for you, right? But the opportunity in moving into stage 2 of building a team is such a far greater feeling. But of course, it's hard to know that because you haven't done it yet, right? So that's why I'm here to explain it to you. So now we're moving into stage 2. This is going to be where you realize you have to start team building and you have to start being able to fill spots in your business, right? Whatever business that you have. So this way you could start having somebody else do the things you're not good at, right? That's how you start to build a team. Now you get into doing that and realizing, man, this is freaking tough. Now you're managing a lot of moving pieces. You start seeing more revenue come in. You start seeing these crazy ebbs and flows because there's no consistency. Maybe you even drop below what you were paying yourself as a solopreneur in business for yourself without a team. And then you start to question everything, right? Is this really what I want? Man, this is really hard. Am I doing this right? Am I meant to do this at all? Right? So then you start to question it all. Which at that point, you start to move into phase 3 of this. And usually at this point in time, you're sitting around maybe $50,000 to $100,000 a month in revenue typically at this point, and you're needing to decide to yourself, am I really ready to move into this next phase, which is removing yourself from responsibility and leadership. That's stage 3. I will say in this phase, stage 3, it is more for sure, it is definitely for sure the hardest stage. This is going to be where you start to realize that you are not directly responsible for the outcome of everything. You are a part of the responsibility of the outcomes. In which case, you're the influence. You're the influence on the entire team in order for you to be able to create the outcome you're looking for, right? You're inspiring team members. You're sharing with them experiences. You're helping them become independent thinkers so they can execute at the highest level, become the A players they know they're meant to be, right? More times than not, a lot of your team members were A players and B player opportunities, and they came to your team because you knew you had the vision to share with them, and then they came onto the team because of the vision, and then they're here to get advice from you. This is the hardest thing to do because after you give advice, then they execute, right? And if that execution doesn't lead to the outcome you're looking for, then you need to evaluate that and know how to lead them into success. All right? It's not just about letting people go if they don't execute. You have to see beyond the numbers. This is what makes this the most difficult stage. All right? But this is what takes you from $1 million a year to doing, $10+ million a year, is figuring out this leadership piece. There's an acronym referred to as NEHO, right? Nose in, head out. Niho. It's where you can like be in there, you see what's going on, you know enough of what you need to know in those specific categories or departments that you could lend your advice, but it's more like bouncing ideas off the team. So this way you could help them think through the things that they already know about, their skill set, right? You're challenging their decision. And it's not all about what you want to do. That's the difference in a leader, right? We're not here to where it's a dictatorship. We say, this is what you do because I say it. You're here to be a leader and help guide people into a higher level of thinking, right? And once they do that, they're there forever, right? This is how you continue to move everything forward and create founder-like mindsets that can run the company for you, and then you are injecting your influence. So now let's get into the actual mindset of the entrepreneur, some just really solid rules of thumb to live by, concepts that we live by at the sales agency and that I live by in my day-to-day to allow me to go from myself being at a 9 to 5, right? Working 100% commission jobs, whether it was selling vacuums or working in a business to consumer setting, selling gym memberships or selling business to business for the Yellow Pages, digital marketing. This is what allowed me to go from that into scaling a multi-7-figure company in 2 years. So, before I was 30 years old. I'm going to share those with you right now too. Number 1, radical thinking creates outrageous outcome. So if you have watched any of my other videos, you'll realize the way I think is always from one extreme to the other. Now, granted, a lot of this is because I was a sales guy, right? So I have a sales guy background. I was 100% commission sales for 10 years. So everything I do, as you might have noticed if you're trying to build a team right now, sales teams, sales guys, sales gals, they all think different. They're a different breed of people. And I know because I was one at a top performer, 6 President's Club before I was 25 years old in the corporate industry, not an easy thing to do. So I can tell you right now, I live in a world of extremes, which helps me embrace this thinking. Radical thinking creates extreme outcomes. I'm going to give you an example. Whenever somebody said, you know what, I'm going to run a 4-minute mile in the Olympics. When they went to go run that 4-minute mile and they were training for that, nobody believed it was possible, okay? But in order to do that, they took their training to the next level. They took their diet to the next level. They took their health and their sleep and everything else they needed to do for their body to the next level. They created more sacrifices. They took that to an extreme, eliminating things from their life that most of us in the society, normal society, have normalized to deem as okay, right? Maybe that looks like having relationships. I'm not saying relationships are good or bad. I'm just saying when you're playing for Olympic level gold and you're looking to make a little bit of history, it's not easy. And you're having to sacrifice things you normally wouldn't. This is radical thinking. This can go in and revolve around anything. Whether it be food and you're not eating certain foods, whether it be sleep and you're focusing on eliminating things you're sleeping on. Maybe you have different types of mattresses, like maybe the room temperature has to be to a certain degree every single night. This is radical thinking, okay? And radical thinking leads to extreme outcomes. Things like if you're selling something on the weekend, right, and you're a sales rep watching this, or maybe you're a business owner, you have a sales team that likes to sell on the weekend. Radical thinking would be saying, hey, the weekend ends on Sunday, and the most believable story ends and has an end date. And guess what? That's the weekend ending on Sunday. So when you're a sales rep or you're a business owner talking to your sales team, there's no better way to manufacture urgency than to realize there is no more existence after Sunday. It literally all ends today, right? So to be able to deliver that message and have a story that's very believable, very real, like that, it allows you to play with this radical thinking that the world ends today because the weekend ends today. And you're manufacturing this urgency. This is radical thinking. And this is how people can close out weekend sales with super high numbers that think like this, because the urgency, which you might even feel listening to this video right now, the urgency that's being projected with this type of thinking becomes real. Because A, the story is very believable, and B, you have so much conviction around this ending that you are projecting that, and it is going to resonate with your prospects. Okay, because remember, sales is just a transfer of emotion. So this is a form of radical thinking, okay? So radical thinking creates extreme outcomes. This is one of the mindsets that we live in when it comes to entrepreneurship that allows us to be able to take very large risks and sacrifice so many things in order to achieve this outrageous outcome whether that be for you to become a billionaire, a millionaire, to build 100,000 houses for the homeless, like whatever that looks like for you, this is what gets you there. It's the radical thinking to create extreme outcomes. Okay, next piece of mindset here. I want to talk about accomplishments. One of the biggest downfalls to successful entrepreneurs, especially successful, naturally talented entrepreneurs, is their accomplishments. Every time they win, they feel like they've reached this level of status to where they're more than they were before. And that is true. You did accomplish something that you had not done before, so that is completely accurate. But what makes somebody move super fast is somebody that can normalize things very, very, very quickly. And so if you can take a win that you have, so I'll give you an example. The first time that we hit $100,000 a month, the next month we did a $200,000 a month. And the next month we're looking at doing a $300,000 a month. Like, that's what normalizing things does for you, because you're not satisfied with the accomplishment that you have. So we have a saying at the sales agency that I share with the team, and it's that accomplishments are only validation that you're capable of more. Believing anything else is accepting the sheer fact that you're only on this earth to participate and not here to be the greatest. Okay, this is a saying that we have at the sales agency that I came up with, because the reality is getting caught up in something that you've done and living in that reality is choosing not to look at the future. So it's important. I had a mentor tell me once, because I was always top 1% in the company, and when I was selling gym memberships, there was like 600 sales reps. It was crazy. It's always top 10. And he would tell me and email me, the VP of sales, he would say, "Rob, great job, spike the ball in the end zone, get back on the field, there's still a game to play." So this is how I see accomplishments. Get the accomplishment, high five the team, maybe celebrate for a sec, but don't overdo it, normalize it, make that the new standard. So this would be the second mindset for entrepreneurship that I would definitely encourage you to embrace. So let's look at this next mindset element. And it's going to be making your emotions match the data, not the event. So important. This is something I talk to our leadership team about all the time at the sales agency, is that, man, I'm telling you, you're going to be dealing with stuff all the time, whether it be life events, with family, friends, relationships, or in your business dealing with clients. Here's the thing about clients, and Jeff Bezos said it best in a lot of his books, that clients are divinely unsatisfied, which basically means that if you're really there for your clients, you're looking to build something on behalf of your clients, and you're leveraging your client's feedback as the next invention, then you're working backwards from the client. What's the client saying? And then you're building that thing, right? So the thing is, with people in general, right, especially buyers, which is somebody that buys your thing regardless of the price, they're a buyer, right? They're divinely unsatisfied. If you solve one thing, guess what happens? They come up with the next thing that they need you to solve. That's the divine unsatisfaction, which is a blessing in business to have that, as long as you're client obsessed, and this is why your company will always continue to develop. That's how Amazon built their business, and that's how we have absolutely implemented that philosophy at the sales agency in my company that we have, where we work with agencies and coaches to develop their sales departments and recruit them teams, sales departments. So it's important to understand, knowing all of this, that you need to look at the ratio of what you've done rather than being engulfed in the event that took place to control your emotions. So I'm going to give you an example. If you have let's say you have two super unsatisfied clients, right? They're not really unsatisfied. They're just like, oh man, I thought this was going to be more than it was. Maybe the expectation was set the wrong way, whatever, right? And then it's really, really coming down on you because you're like, dang, I knew I could have helped them, like whatever it is. And then maybe that client asks for a refund, right? Maybe for whatever reason, they just back out and they dispute a payment. Now, this could be insanely frustrating, and maybe it is. Maybe you just lost $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 on that. Frustrating, right? But when you look at it in the grand scheme of things, maybe you have 100 active clients, and 2 of those people did that. That's literally 2% of your entire database. When you look at the ratio as a whole, you still won the war. Okay? Just because 2 clients maybe were a little frustrated or whatever, right? That doesn't mean that you lost the war, you lost a battle. And it's important to understand that we can't focus on winning every battle. We need to focus on winning the war, the bigger picture that we have in us pursuing the big vision. And it's okay if 2 clients are unhappy or whatever, or they get a refund or dispute or whatever. Chalk that up as a learning experience. What can you take from that failure to make it a successful failure, which is also something else we pulled from Amazon. They did that a lot with like whenever they went to go build a store like eBay that failed miserably. They lost a lot of money, and then they took that failure, turned it into a successful failure, and built Fulfillment by Amazon, which is now a very heavy majority of their revenue. So you got to do the same thing in business. If you have something like this, a small ratio where you lost a battle, take that loss and turn it into a successful failure. Find the components that you can learn from it and build from it, right? So it's important to make sure that you are taking your emotions and actually having certain emotions that relay on data, not on an event, okay? And data tells us in this scenario that we're still winning. I still feel good about it. It's unfortunate though that happened with those clients, but at the end of the day, like, we are still winning. We are continuing to build, and this right here, this event is helping us deliver a better experience for all of our clients. This is a really important mindset to have as an entrepreneur ascending beyond the 1% for constant innovation and invention in your company. Let's get into the next entrepreneurship mindset, which is it's not sexy to be successful. So let me explain that for a sec. Being successful is super fun, right? Everybody sees you. Maybe you, however you define success, maybe you have the new car, the new house, the new boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever, right? Maybe you define that as success, and maybe that is fun to have all that. And again, you will acquire more of these things as a byproduct of doing really well throughout the process of what you're doing. But that being said, being successful is about getting really, really good at the unsexy stuff. And this is something that isn't talked about enough because we all want to talk about closing deals. We all want to talk about booking all these sales calls, and we want to talk about revenue and how much we collected. This is the normal conversation that you might talk about with a mentor or a friend or your guru or whatever. But the reality is scale happens through simplicity. So if you want to scale quickly, you need to make your process simple and understand that your outputs are irrelevant. The inputs are what create the outputs. All of your attention needs to be on inputs, not outputs. Inputs are all the different things you're doing to create an output. Okay, maybe that's how many phone calls you're making to set the appointment. And maybe the appointment is the win. So if you want X amount of appointments, then your focus needs to be on inputs of calls or inputs of messages, right? Or inputs of certain ad metrics to generate that specific phone call. The phone call itself is a smokescreen, right? So you need to understand that you're tracking inputs, not outputs. Going in and tracking all your metrics with the sales team. Going in, looking at your bank account and tracking expenses every single day. If you're not doing these things and you're here to grow a business, maybe you're watching this trying to figure out how to be a successful entrepreneur in business or in life, and you're not tracking the small things, you've already lost the war. You might be thinking that you're winning the war because you won a couple battles, which is you set some sales calls, you closed some deals, right? You added some revenue in the bank, and you might be chalking that up to winning the war and thinking you're on track. But if you're not entirely focused on inputs, you've lost the war, right? So this is super important to make sure that you're falling in love with the unsexy stuff in order to be successful. The sexy stuff is a smokescreen, and typically those are outputs. Okay, super irrelevant information to track. Overall, as higher executives, you're looking at outputs to determine if you're on pace maybe to hit a specific goal for the end of the year. But in order to actually control the output, you need to focus your attention on the input. Next mindset for behaviors for entrepreneurs, and it's really your behavioral action. So a lot of the time we feel like we need to just focus on mastering a certain skill set or doing something that's going to make us great. But the reality is, more times than not, behavior and the things that you do off the field, things that you do outside of business, things that you do when people are not looking, these are the things that are bleeding into business. So if you're not following a morning routine, if you don't have specific goals lined up, if you're not fulfilling your needs that make you happy, like those are certain hobbies or being around certain people, if you're not sleeping very well, if you're not working out, if you're not eating very well, these are all behavioral habits that whenever they're not executed consistently, right, because that's how you create culture, is habitual habits executed consistently and daily, that's how you create culture. If you're not doing these things, it will bleed into business. And the thing is, you cannot expect people to respect you more than you respect yourself. That's just, it doesn't work, right? So if you want to make sure that you're able to quote unquote demand respect, the easiest way to do that is to set a higher standard for yourself and to execute these behaviors consistently, daily, so this becomes a standard, and now you can expect more out of people because you do it for yourself. And that's how you can quote unquote demand more respect without demanding it and think you're entitled to it, right? So behavior is going to be the next thing on this list of mindset to be successful as a very high producing entrepreneur. Next entrepreneurial mindset is going to be to never stop learning. The minute that you have decided, and by the way, if you're watching this video, you're obviously not at that point yet because you're looking to learn a little bit more. But if you ever feel like you don't need to read a book, if you ever feel like you don't need to get another mentor, if you ever feel like you don't need to pick up another whatever, right, to get a little bit more ahead, to learn a little bit more, then you've lost the war, right? So it's important to make sure that the minute you decide you don't need that is the minute that you have given yourself permission to become obsolete, okay? If you're not constantly finding a way to advance your mindset or to sharpen a skill set, that is the minute that you have given yourself permission to become obsolete. Another thing Jeff Bezos says, right? Day 2 is followed by a slow, painful decline followed by death. And you always need to remain in day 1. And the only way you can do that is innovation and invention. And the only way those two things happen is to acquire more knowledge. So the minute you choose to stop learning, which again, if you're watching this, that's not you, but the minute you choose to stop learning is the minute that you have opted in and subscribed to giving yourself permission to become obsolete. Whether that's today, tomorrow, in a year, you will become obsolete. Now you might be asking yourself, at what point do you stop, right? Because as an entrepreneur, you got into this for freedom, okay? You got into the game of business and becoming your own boss for freedom. So if you're going this far to doing all these things to become a top entrepreneur, high earning entrepreneur above the 1%, at what point does it end? And my answer for you is it doesn't, right? Once you become good at the game never ends. Because now it's not a matter of do you have time or do you want to acquire something else? It's just a matter of enjoying the process, right? So this is why the game never ends. I'm going to leave you with this here today. You fall in love with the process. The process will be good to you. I've been saying this for 10 years now to everyone I've mentored over the years. If you fall in love with the process will be good to you. So that's what I'm going to leave you with here today. Focus on that, falling in love with the process, and I promise you, everything else that you receive in life it will be a byproduct to how well you execute that process. So thanks for watching this video. Hopefully it was helpful. I'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below. I personally go and read all the comments, reply as quickly as I can, and we also take those suggestions to make more videos depending on what you want to see. I also included some assets down below in the description. So regardless of where you're at in business, there's some free assets, some not free assets, depending on how quickly you want to accelerate where you're currently at to get to the next level. And I put that on here to help everyone that watches this channel. So I really appreciate you. So go check those out. And I'm looking forward to seeing you on the next video. And before I forget, subscribe to the channel. If you really like this video, you definitely want to subscribe to the channel and see the next video we have coming out. You're not going to want to miss them. And hit the bell so this way you can actually get notified. Anyway, looking forward to seeing you on the next one. And I'll be answering your comment down below.